Hello, Wanderer. May I introduce you to the Keramikos, the kiln that warms all of Athens' pottery. The art produced here is some of the most beautiful in the Greek world. I envy the potter's skills, though I'm not quite as envious of their clay-stained hands. It's bad for the nails. The Keramikos was a special neighborhood in Athens, where potters created vases and containers that stood all over Greece. This tour will take you through the elaborate process needed to turn something as simple as muddy clay into ornate perfume vases and gilded wine cups. Come find me when you complete your visit, and we can talk more about what you've learned.
The Keramikos was a large, sprawling area northwest of Athens' Acropolis. While part of it was used as a graveyard, it was also dedicated to the creation of pottery. The Keramikos was so significant to the art form that its name lives on in the word ceramics. Perhaps drawn by the river, potters moved into the area and formed their own bustling community. It's believed that by the end of the 5th century BCE, hundreds of thousands of pottery vessels had been made in Athens, including everything from heavy, undecorated cooking pots to delicate and beautiful containers reserved for the most precious oils. Sadly, only around 1% of these works survive today, some only in small fragments. Raw clay from a river was hardly fit for a potter's wheel. Athenian potters used clay that was rich in iron, which created the distinctive orange-red coloring seen in Athenian pottery. But this high-quality clay needed to be handled carefully. To avoid disasters in the kiln later on, the clay was first brought to settling beds, where it was mixed with water to wash out any organic debris like leaves. Once it was purified, workers kneaded the clay with their hands to push out air bubbles and create the texture necessary for a flawless finish. One of the goals of these early steps was to remove any impurities that could destroy a delicate design, or worse, render a vase unusable. Once the clay was cleaned, it was up to the potter to shape it into a vase by spinning it on a wheel or pressing it into a mold. Their choice depended on what shape they wanted for the vase, but they also considered the possible scope of its decoration. Potters did not work alone. A workshop might have had many people working together on different aspects of production. Potters collaborated with many different painters for decorating their creations. Some of these painters even became potters themselves. All in all, a single vase could be worked on by many different artists, with each one focusing on a different aspect of its design. After the pots were shaped and decorated, they were packed into kilns for the lengthy and delicate firing process. The process had 3 stages: oxidation, reduction, and reoxidation. The main purpose of the firing process was to carefully manage the clay's exposure to oxygen. The chemical reactions caused by firing gave the pots their distinctive orange-red coloring. This also turned the designs made from the clay decoration slips glossy and black. The most difficult part of the firing process was managing the fires themselves. It required an enormous amount of skill and experience to properly judge the exact temperatures needed, and even the smallest mistake could ruin several hours of work. Vases could be decorated in all sorts of ways. Before 530 BCE, Athenian vases were decorated using the black figure technique, where figures and designs were painted as dark silhouettes. At the end of the 6th century BCE, painters created a new technique called red figure, an inversion of the painting process that left the figures in red and the background in black. This gave the artist more freedom to better explore details like muscles and individual locks of hair. Designs were sketched onto the bare surface of the pot using a thin, sharp tool. Thin relief lines, which helped define subtle elements like facial features, were added using a brush made of a few stiff hairs. More elaborate vases were sometimes gilded, but these decorations were so delicate, they were most likely only added after the firing process.
You've returned! As you can see, pottery was an arduous and delicate process, but was exemplary of the skill and craftsmanship that dominated Greek art and culture. Now, is there something else you'd like to do? Then let's get right to it, starting with an easy question. What was responsible for the orange-red color of most Athenian vases? Correct! Athenian potters worked with clay that was rich with iron, and that iron created a distinctive orange-red coloring. On to the next question. What were the chambers for firing pottery called? Correct. Pottery was fired in kilns, and the firing process was extremely precise and delicate in nature. You're almost done. Just one more question. The firing process was made up of how many stages? Correct. The 3 stages of the firing process were oxidation, reduction, and reoxidation. You know your pottery. Well done, Wanderer. Then we must part ways, at least for now. Farewell, Wanderer.
Because I only have one left. And I have all these other discovery sites I want to do first.
So you don't want to talk to your best friend?
I will.
That's scary.
See, I only have 1 tour left, and it's about dying. And fashion stuff.
Dude, that's the good stuff, though. Botoa? Is that where we go on Botoa?
Let's go to Lesbos. Time to do some discovery sites.
Yeah, I tend to do boring stuff, you know? Talk about fish.
Fish.
Have they talked to you about fishing here?
There've been a few sites that talk about fish and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've actually specifically talked about it in a tour.
Talked about olives.
Yep.
Good.
Winemaking and perfume.
Talked about Alexander.
No.
Oh, sucks.
Well, he's not alive yet.
So?
He's not important to this time period.
You're gonna put Macedonia on the map.
Yeah, well, this is before that.
It was an interesting choice in Civilization 6. Make Macedonia previous ones, Alexander was a Greek culture. But then they were like, no, we're going to make Macedonia some civilization. Look at them plants.
Pretty.
Purple. You got plants like that back on Kefalonia.
I don't think so.
Sparta.
Lesbos. The Baron of Lesbos, home of the famous poet Sappho, was inspired by one of the most interesting monetary types in antiquity.
Yeah.
Unlike other cities, Lesbos changed monetary types from one insurance issuance to another. This provided great variety, notably this unusual depiction of two female heads overlapping. Lesbos' cities were members of the Delian League from the start. They provided ships to the Alliance, but then revolted in 428 BCE, and the victorious Athenians sent settlers to occupy the island.
This is terrifying image.
Yeah. Here's our island's banner. It's freaky, man.
I think that was a mistake. Like if they have multiple points that look like that, maybe. Otherwise, I think someone just stamped it wrong.
Yeah, someone had a faulty stamp. And they just
stamped it one way and they're like, oh man.
and then they
this
just
is
kept
the wrong
going with
batch
it.
of coins for that face, and you put the other face on it, and stamp the other face, and then like I made an abomination.
I just got to keep going now.
This is not legal
And then
tender anymore. This is like a coin collector's
He made
dream,
so much.
though.
He made so much it had become the actual currency.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you messed up. Look at our coins.
It's like that, you know, that two-headed quarter that's worth crap ton of money to this mistake. It's not legal tender, but it's worth boku bucks.
Yeah.
You know? We have a camp.
Oh, moose. Field camps were built at the end of a day's march to provide protection in case of a surprise enemy attack. They were widely used when attacking cities. During sieges. The camps are where soldiers would eat, sleep, and store their weapons, food rations, and spoils, often for months at a time. It's also where a soldier would take refuge when and if things went badly in battle. Building a good fortified camp or fortifying a village or small city in the enemy's territory may have meant the difference between victory and defeat. As sieges would stretch on, a good fortified camp meant that an army could safely remain in unfriendly lands and exert pressure on the enemy. This could be done by burning or taking their crops, by preventing resupply, or simply by exerting their demoralizing presence. Establishing a fortified position in enemy lands in order to constantly raid it was common tactic in the Peloponnesian War. Athens employed it at Pylos from 425 to 409 BCE, and so did the Spartans with a more devastating effect over a week in Athens when they fortified Decelea from 413 to 404. And you have a moose walking around.
We don't know what's going on. This pacifism mode just makes like everything weird.
You'll have
okay?
wild animals just going in and out of camp.
Nice bed.
Soldiers on the move mostly slept under the sky on beds of reeds, for in most cases, tent materials was too great a burden. They ate 2 meals a day, one at midday, except when battle was expected, and then dinner. They usually cooked these meals themselves. In most cases, the meal consisted of maza, a sort of barley porridge. The Spartans did things differently. They had dedicated cooks in their armies.
Heck yeah.
When the soldiers needed to relieve themselves, they simply went wherever they could outside of camp, as there was no special location for this act. There was little in the way of entertainment in military camps. The Spartans, however, did have some techniques for avoiding boredom. After the regular practice and exercise, they had a sort of contest of singing songs by the poet Tarteios, and the winner received a prize in meat.
Heck yeah.
Even in a war camp, the gods had to be honored. Whenever possible, sacrifices were made and seers were consulted, often about the tides of battle.
I love how, like, they say something and then they're like, but the Spartans were different.
They were a little better.
The Spartans were a little better. dude. These Spartans, they got chefs. They
We
just
have
cook things
we
for
have
them.
cooks. We do song contests, and you get meat for prizes.
Who wouldn't want to show up for a Spartan rap battle? Let's be real.
Spartan rap battles.
Yeah. Huh. Stupid Athenians. That's why they lost. The second Peloponnesian war. First one was kind of a stalemate. Woo! Horse is like, I fly.
Blah.
Okay, listen, dude. We're not trampling your food because we want to.
We're doing it because my horse will not listen to me.
Trample the grain. Trample the grain.
Uh,
Oh, that's a funny looking building.
That's where we fought the Gorgon.
The Lord.
Yep.
This doesn't match up. There is Bruce Phobos. Proceed on. What?
Okay.
That's a thing. That's a thing?
I guess. We're better to have the home of the notorious Medusa, famous for turning her victims to stone, than in a petrified forest. As one of the most well-known creatures from Greek myth, featured in countless books, movies, and historical records, it was a challenge for the development team to strip away the previous incarnations and start fresh. In mythology, Medusa was one of the three Gorgons, sisters with wings and snakes for hair, able to petrify onlookers. The Medusa in Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a woman, transformed by a first civilization artifact into a creature of great power. As such, her temple features the classic geometry and architecture of First Civilization constructions, and is the only open-air First Civilization temple in-game.
Suppose I never noticed that. Yeah, I guess all the other ones. Well, no. What about the Sphinx? The Sphinx was open air, wasn't it?
I don't know if that was really a temple, though.
What makes this a temple and the other ones not?
I actually have to go in with the pathway. That's stupid. I think. Here we are.
Hey, Ubi. Ubi-sa.
Let me in! Let me in!
Maybe it's not inside the temple. Maybe just walk around.
I just can't remember which side has the door.
You think it would be the side where they talk to you about the temple. Man, these trees are messed up. Ubisoft. Come on, guys. You're the ones who designed this game. Designed it there. Oh, this is a doorway.
Never mind, there's over here.
Oh, that's a statue of Medusa. Hey, Medusa.
Hey, Medusa.
You doing, snake lady? That's a nice snake you got there. Got like 6 of them.
Perseus was the Greek hero who ultimately killed Medusa. He was the son of Zeus and Danae, and he promised to obtain the head of Medusa to King Polydectes. Medusa was a Gorgon, a female monster that had living snakes on her head instead of locks of hair. Her gaze petrified all who locked eyes with her and turned them to stone. Perseus went to the Hesperides to acquire the weapon that would help him defeat Medusa. They also gave him a sack to hold her head. Kibyssus. He received a sword from Zeus, winged sandals from Hermes, and a shiny shield from Athena, and the ability to hide from Hades.
Heck yeah.
When Perseus... Oh, hide from Hades, not hide from the god of the underworld. Hades is looking for me!
It is like, I think he's around here.
Where is he? I'm not here, Hades! I swear! When Perseus entered Medusa's cave, he used the shield's reflection to avoid eye contact and successfully decapitated her. Perseus used the head of Medusa as a weapon, but later gave it as a gift to Athena, who placed the head of the Gorgon on her shield, or the Aegis. Aegis.
You're looking great, Queen. Behind the scenes on Medusa.
The Medusa has been portrayed in many different ways over the years, from a beautiful young woman to a monstrous creature with a serpent's body and tail. The art team decided to move away from these depictions, concentrating on the details of her appearance. The snakes are based on actual Greek species found on the islands and mainland Greece. Her dress is made from large swaths of snakeskin, suggesting even bigger serpents once existed. Medusa is represented in her Greek form as a humanoid woman, rather than in the Roman version that would follow, explains art director Thierry Dansero. She is, after all, a woman transformed by an ancient artifact rather than the will of the gods.
It's true. Red and yellow friendly color.
I don't think that really counts with her.
Check. She got red and black. No. Yes. Yes, she got red and black. That's bad. It's bad. Poison snake. I think. I don't know, man. I don't do snakes.
Lesbos is an island situated in the northeast of the Aegean Sea. Lesbos rebelled against the Athenians, leading to its eventual surrender to Athens. Lesbos is notable in real life for its 18-million-year-old petrified forest, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, home to fossilized remains of a once vast swath of vegetation and forest. The art team used their artistic license to grow the trees into dense forests of tangled roots and branches, a maze for our hero to navigate. The atmosphere of the forest is oppressive, with temple ruins appearing from the murky background and a sense of dread lingering behind every corner. Finished concepts by Hugo Puzzoli show the red and yellow accents in the rock and of the petrified trees, caused by intense volcanic activity millions of years ago. Where to next? Euboea. Let's go. Glue factory. To bring down enemy cavalries, the Greeks buried clay pots on their lands. The horses' legs sank into the buried pots, breaking their legs. Began under Pericles. Combined order with the assertion of a citizen's right to freedom through political decisions.
I serve the Republic. I serve democracy.
Hey, bear.
There's a bear. Is this a stupid place where there's like a bear every 3 feet?
No, that was a different one. That was Chios.
That's right, because it's chi and bear skin.
Yeah, I actually needed to collect like 6 of those for a side quest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotta explain it.
It's like, oh, I already have. No, I think I got rid of them.
That's a big moose.
That is the hind. The Kyrenian hind. The third labor of Heracles was to capture the Kyrenian hind, a beast notoriously faster than an arrow.
Jeez, man.
And that took it down pretty quickly. This particular labor was not about strength, but about speed and patience. Heracles chased the hind on foot for over a year, in Thrace, and as far as Istria in the Adriatic Sea. Did it swim?
Nah, dude, they were both running so fast it was running
They ran.
on water.
Wow.
Okay?
However, there's more than one legend that tells of its capture. In one version, Heracles caught the hind when it was asleep with a trap net or a thrown arrow. In another, it was Artemis, whose sacred animal was the hind, who helped Heracles after he told the goddess that he didn't intend on desecrating the animal.
got golden horns.
Those are some nice antlers.
Ooh, hang that rack on your wall, right? Of course, not if you're a follower of Artemis. Don't want to anger those people. They're a little crazy.
No. Hippocrates!
Divine intervention, little buggy things. Who knows?
Let's see, the statue of Zeus at Olympia, the Colossus of Rhodes, the pyramids,
Hanging gardens.
the Hanging Gardens.
Colossus of Rhodes, Great Lighthouse,
Oh yeah,
Statue of Zeus, Great Library, Hanging Gardens, Pyramids. I'm missing one.
I know, it's like I don't know what all the wonders
I'm
were.
missing one. How can I do this? Let me go back. Okay, so Greece has Colossus of Rhodes, Statue of Zeus. Yeah, Statue of Zeus, Colossus of Rhodes. Great Lighthouse of Alexandria.
Library.
Library of Alexandria. Pyramids. Hanging Gardens. Probably don't exist anymore.
Metal workshops of different sizes coexisted in ancient Greece. By the second half of the 6th century, the development of armament workshops, orchestria, employed a few craftsmen or up to a few dozen slaves and is quite noticeable. Larger production units soon appeared, making metalworking one of the most lucrative crafts in classical Greece. At least it is assumed so by historians. As with many other crafts, metalworking was exclusively practiced by men. The smallest workshops for local supply might have been comprised of only 3 workers, 1 smith, and 2 slaves to assist him. On the other hand, the largest workshops resembled factories. They could be very large and employ more than 50 slaves. For example, in Athens, on the slopes of the Acropolis, 4 giant 40-meter-long workshops dated back from 470 to 440 BCE have been excavated. The Athenian medic Kephalos might have possessed such a weapons workshop, since it was said that he had 120 slaves working for him. By contrast, the metal workshops found in the sanctuary of Nemea are smaller, but they are not necessarily the more common scale. The overall trend was super specialization. The sword makers, for example, were not the same as helmet or shield makers. There were dorgskoi, lance makers, and makairopoioi, who crafted swords or knives. Helmet's workshop could also produce greaves, but the cuirasses, especially the muscle armors, were manufactured by specific craftsmen. Moreover, in the large workshops, one could assume that all the workers were assigned very narrowly defined tasks. Do your specialization. Euboea was an important source of grain and cattle. Its name even means rich in cattle. Knowing this, it isn't that surprising to find depictions of bulls on their coins. The banner was inspired by the head of a bull, taken from the silver drachmae of the Euboean League. Bulls are sometimes presented in full on other Euboean coinage, like those of Eretria, Charistos, and Histiaia. Because of its resources, Euboea was a strategic region to control, and Athens invaded in 506 BCE. The Athenians defeated Chalkis, confiscated the land, and gave it to 4,000 settlers, who could retain their Athenian citizenship. Going down to the docks.
Ooh, this is what I want to see. My favorite.
The Greeks have long been known as a naval powerhouse. The development team created multiple ship models, covering the trireme with 3 rows of oars, the bireme with 2, merchant ships, and other smaller boats. Historical pop culture sources, including a visit to a life-size replica of a trireme, 3rd century BCE graffiti, depictions on vases and stone relief, and movies like Hercules, 1958, Jason and the Argonauts, 1963, and many others, all serve to inform the design team to create realistic and functional digital replicas of these classic ships. The color and animal-based designs of the ships are also significant. To the far right, the Athenian ship is clear, not just from its blue coloring, but also the owl adorning its sail. The owl being the symbol of wisdom associated with Athena, the protector goddess of Athens. In the center is a darker colored ship common among pirates. To the left, a Spartan ship, and in the far left, the smaller and less streamlined ship is a fishing boat. 3D renders of the figureheads featured in Odyssey range from the proud Griffin and Pegasus to the terrible Hydra and Medusa.
And eagle. I'll go count some fish.
There's some fish.
Go catch some fish?
I can fish.
Or not?
I don't have a fishing pole.
You know the only good games are games with fishing mechanics in them, right?
Well, then you'll like Valhalla, because I believe you can fish in that.
Heck yeah. Oh, I'm gonna like it a lot. But where's the quadrine?
There is no quadrine.
Not yet.
Do 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 do.
Καλώνουμε και πολιώνουμε, χθονία και χειροκτώνε, φυλαγρώτη και λυτηρία.
Hey, Poseidon. The bronze statue of Poseidon at the Archaeological Museum of Athens, National Museum of Athens, depicts either Zeus or Poseidon. It is one of the few remaining original bronze statues from Greece's classical period, but it is also one of the most impressive. The statue depicts a thick-bearded, curly-haired god with a muscular, well-detailed anatomy. It is missing its eyes, which were made of a different material, perhaps semi-precious stone or glass. The statue's right hand clutched either a lightning bolt if it depicts Zeus, or a trident if it depicts Poseidon. For the purpose of the game, we decided it was Poseidon. The sculpture was made by an artist of great skill. It's possible it was created by the renowned sculptor Calamus. I think I remember something about, like, discovering this statue on TV a couple years ago. Yeah. Because I think I remember seeing, like, something about a statue like this on TV. Like an ancient history documentary or something like that. Focus! We're going to focus. What would be Greece without the typical olive groves? Early on, some key nature elements were chosen in order to fuel the Greek landscape.
What is that horse?
Abraxas!
You're on that horse, baby.
Off we go!
Riding down.
Go around you.
Why? Wanna fight the guy with an archery dude? Coward. Hey, nice temples you got here. Pretty shame if something were to smash the box.
I don't smash pots.
Why not?
I take the money.
Μεγαλώνει με θεά.
Coward. This dude has been wrestling.
Μεγαλώνει με και πολιώνει με. Φωνία και θηροκτώνε.
In the focus region was Delphi, the site of the Panhellenic Oracle of Apollo. A prophecy would be given by the Pythia who sat on the Delphic tripod, a three-legged piece of furniture. This tripod, one attributed of Apollo, is depicted on the banner with two dolphins on either side. Dolphins were also dedicated to Apollo, and their name in Greek, Delphis, recalls the name of Delphi. Tripods and dolphins appeared on some of the coins of Delphi, but this composition derived from the coinage of Megaris.
Sparing upon the altar in the guise of a dolphin. Great communities Apollo Delphines. And the called Delphines.
Τι συνέβη μου. Μεγαλώνει με θεά. Αγλαώκει με. Τεχνών μύθου πολίων με.
Λέγωση, οι εννοί εξαδέλφοι απεκτήσατε πολλά έναν εξάδελφο και πολλές ώρες σύμφωνος.
Sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Don't shove the kid. Don't shove the kid. Don't do it.
I didn't.
Our better than this.
Four methods were used to harvest olives. Picking the fallen fruit on the ground was the easiest and could be sufficient to meet the needs of a small household. Another method was to have men shake the branches while others collected the olives in wide baskets. Hand-picking was preferred for preserves since it does not damage the fruit, but it was a long process. A less labor-intensive method was to beat the branches with long sticks to make the olives fall on the ground or onto pieces of cloth. However, this method damaged the branches and a rough beating could hinder the following year's production. Olives were a widespread and traditional food staple, often consumed with bread and onions. They could be bought in almost every city from street peddlers.
I do like me some good olives.
Olives.
Oh, yeah. Olive trees in Sparta.
Olive production was an important feature of the ancient Greek agrarian economy. Both olives and olive oil were used on many significant occasions. Olive trees generally only produced a crop every other year, and production is very variable from harvest to harvest. This unpredictability was a reason against farmers becoming exclusively olive producers, so mixed farming remained the norm. Planting olive trees was one of the most important means of increasing the productivity of land and its long-term value. It allowed landowners to create usable farmland from slopes and other marginal land that would otherwise have been left for grazing. While an olive tree might produce a small return after 8 to 10 years, it may take 20 or 30 years to come into full production. But olive trees live for a very long time. If a landowner planted olives on his land, it was his children and grandchildren that would harvest the fruit. Wow.
A long-term investment, you know?
Yeah. Doesn't pay right away, but eventually it does.
And boy, do it do.
To extract oil, olives were soaked and fermented in baskets or vats for 10 days. This softened their skin and made their oil more fluid, but also more bitter. An alternative was to wash the olives in boiling water before crushing them. The olives were then squashed and ground. Small amounts could be ground in a stone mortar, but larger quantities had to be trod on in vats by men wearing wooden clogs or in a rotary mill, a stone bowl in which one or two rotating millstones were activated by human or animal power. The usual press featured a heavy wooden beam anchored at one end and stone weights attached to the other end. The beam acted as a lever to increase the pressure exerted on the fruits. The crushed olives were placed in fiber or cloth containers, which were stacked on top of each other on the press bed. After a first pressing, boiling water was poured to ease the flow of oil, and the olives were pressed again. This process was repeated for a third pressing. The resulting product was a mixture of water, olive juice, and oil collected at the press bed. After it had settled in a container, the oil floated on the surface and was separated from the water. This had to be done swiftly to prevent dregs from fermenting and altering the taste of the oil. Wow.
Nice. I'm telling you, the Greeks were smart.
We be so smart. We are the Greeks. We like olives. Down we go.
What's down here? Snake temple. Woo! Yo, that is a big snake.
Yep. Oh, this is where we killed, whoa, what's his name?
He's standing on here, bro. What's his name?
I forget.
It's so important.
The guy that sent us to kill our dad.
Oh, Reggie has a here?
Nope. We found out he was part. We
Part of the cult?
yeah, we found out he was part of the cult, and then when we killed him, we took his cloak to infiltrate the meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, I forget his name.
He's an angry dude.
Greece is known for its monuments, temples, and statues, some of which still exist today. But even in 431 BCE, Greece had ruins of even older civilizations. In Phocis, thought of as the land of the gods and center of the world, stands the sanctuary of Delphi, sitting on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, along with other temples and structures from the pre-classical Greek age. While drawing on real-life examples, historical research, plus popular culture in the forms of movies and comics, the art team also had to construct some monuments from nothing but myth, and to give life to these magnificent structures.
Why is there a giant snake here?
Because this was the snake that Apollo killed.
Oh, a big snake. So you just found out this dude's part of a cult and you said awesome?
Yeah, after we talked to the...
Speaking of a cult guy.
Yep.
Like, did you know the cult was hunting you?
Uh...
Or did you not find that out until you infiltrated?
At this point, I basically went to the Oracle to find out why. Why my family had to be killed or whatever. And we basically found out that there was a cult responsible for. They were the ones that were responsible for the Pythia's prophecies and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they were forcing her to say specific things.
Yeah.
And we learned that one of her caretakers or whatever was... Yeah. I forget his name. Yeah. So we tracked him down, killed him, took his cloak, and we used that to infiltrate the temple.
Is it like anyone messing with here? Whoa, what is that?
That is a big statue of,
Prometheus.
yeah, Prometheus.
Liver eating.
Yeah, I know. I got distracted by the statue.
You know, according to the Greeks, the first ring was, I think it was Heracles got Prometheus free. He's like, hey, it's good. Liver eating. It's okay.
Alpinor, that was it.
Elpenor, yeah.
That was the guy.
But, yeah, so he was like, hey guys, why don't you let this guy go? He's sick, liver eating. You guys are like, yeah, okay. So they cut his chain. They're like, yeah, you're still gonna wear a link to this chain to symbolize that you're forever a slave.
Mm.
That was Jesus. Go, let's go. Nice. Great picture.
Greek mythology is a fascinating and enduring collection of fantastical stories, ones that the art team had great fun recreating in it for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Drawing on the myth, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, and representations in classical artwork and popular culture, the mythological world became real for the hero. The myths are instantly recognizable in the artwork on these pages. The Titan Tityos, who attempted to violate Leto, the daughter of Titan Chorus and Phoebe, was punished for his transgression by being tied to a rock in Tartarus. His liver was eaten every day by 2 vultures, only to regrow overnight to begin the torment again.
What you gonna give me?
I think I've done everything.
Except for Marine.
Yeah, but that's because I haven't finished the last daily life tour. And that's the only tour I have left. I put a spell on you.
I'll go.
Do 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 do. Pericles decided to avoid land combat. Focus on what you're good at, basically.
Good, Sparta's in there.
Orchomenos. The city of Orchomenos in Boeotia has origins going back to the Neolithic period.
Or Boeotia, as they say in the game.
Whatever. Discovered in the 19th century, it was excavated by Heinrich Schliemann, the same person who discovered and searched for the cities of Troy, Mycenae, and Tiryns. The excavations left few details. Remains of fortifications dated to the 4th century BCE were discovered. A Tholos tomb, known as the Treasury of Minyas, was also uncovered. The possible remains of a Mycenaean palace on the flank of the Acropolis would have been found just above the spring of the Charites. Fragments and paintings have also been found in the vast architectural complex between the 9th century church and the theater. Clues suggest that the church, one of the oldest in Greece, was built on the remains of the Charites temple. The remains of a theater, also dated back to the 4th century BCE, are still visible today.
Archimedes?
Whoop. Yep. Deus Ex Machina. Excuse me, donkey.
Tas πράξεις σου έγνω.
Gods and fish.
Heck yeah, tell me about the fish.
The main god of the sea was Poseidon. There were temples dedicated to him in many coastal cities, such as Cape Suinin, south of Athens. Fish, like other animals, were offered as sacrifices for the gods. A painting described by Athenaeus showed Poseidon offering a tuna to Zeus just before he gave birth to Athena. Hey, Dad, I know you're in a lot of head pain right now. Here's a fish.
He's not dad, brother.
Whatever.
Hey, little brother. I'll give you a fish for your troubles.
Just put it on your forehead. It just eases the pain.
Yeah.
It was believed that in order to get a good tuna harvest, one needed to sacrifice eels to Poseidon. Fish were also used in divination. The Lycians, for example, practiced ichthyomancy. Meat was thrown into a special sinkhole to attract fish, and depending on which species were attracted, the response from the gods was determined. What happens if you got piranha?
Ha. War. Death. Destruction. Big boom.
Big boom. Do 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 do.
Then after this Peloponnesian War, sometime hence, looking at this place, this city, call it Roma.
Yeah.
Something special happening. Violence.
And they took over everywhere.
Yeah, but they still weren't as big as Alexander, you know? It's hard to beat that.
They did make it all the way to England, though.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. They didn't make it into Scotland, though.
No.
Scots were too strong. They
Scot-
didn't wear pants. But then again, neither did the Romans. So they should be on even footing.
Thank you, Scotland.
Where's your trousers, bro? Oh, we're married cookies. That's better. Everybody gets everyone. Not to be confused with the other thieves, which is in Egypt.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey's focus on the details is what really takes the game to the next level in terms of immersion. The sheer variety of textures that make up the layered background to the cities and landscapes are what give the locations their character and quality. The art and development team are constantly pushing the boundaries, aiming for bigger, better, and higher quality than ever before. The textures here are a fraction of what appears in the game. Even the simplest white stone blocks are not plain but richly detailed with grains and imperfections. The colorful tiles and murals speak to the craftsmanship of Greece itself, giving history and life to each wall and column.
I got some questions about some of these images.
Yeah.
First of all, why do I have a column of tree? I'm confused. Second of all, what's going on in some of the pictures over there?
I think that might be moss.
Whatever, man. I think whoever designed this game needs a little bit of... Now, hold on.
I know, but it's the one that I have marked.
You're gonna waste time running back and forth because you don't believe in horses.
Horses just trot during the city.
You know, you got a point. Kind of like a fish.
Come, Phobos, Abraxas.
He's walking off the fence. You know, your favorite activity. Bumping into the trees.
Phobos.
Exactly.
Ah, the Sphinx.
What's up, Ibuki?
In Greek mythology, the Sphinx was a creature with the face of a human, the wings of a bird, and the body of a lion. The Assassin's Creed Odyssey team had melded more than one mythological creature into their Sphinx, adding elements of the mythological chimera, like the tail ending in a snake head.
Yep.
Why? Why not just stick with Sphinx?
Why not? They didn't have a chimera in it, so they needed to improvise.
The Sphinx offered a different challenge to the hero, explained Theory Dansuru. You cannot defeat her by force. Instead, you must answer her riddle. In traditional myth, those who cannot answer her riddle suffer a terrible fate, killed and devoured by the beast. It was challenging to try to create a menacing creature, but still have a feeling of beauty to transpire. Well, I think they did a good job.
Yeah, you won.
As I know riddles. At least those riddles.
They weren't hard, okay? There was only one we were confused on.
Yeah, but even then it's like, oh.
Yeah, was it a bumblebee or was it a hummingbird?
It was a hummingbird, but I thought it might have been bee. Because I don't know how, because it's the size of your thumb. I didn't know how big bees were.
I mean, these are the size of your thumb. Some small hummingbirds are the size of your thumb.
So yeah, it could have been either one.
Could have been either one.
But hummingbird was the one that they had the glyph
Yeah,
for,
there was
so
one that didn't have an
yeah. Boeotian. The Boeotian banner naturally depicts the Boeotian shield, which was the main type of coinage of Thebes, and later of the Boeotian Confederation. The shield is the most important weapon of defense. Greek soldiers usually used a round-shaped shield, the aspis, but Boeotians eventually developed an oval shield with a semicircular indentation on either side of the middle. This would have reduced its weight and allowed the bearer to thrust and stab while staying protected. None of these shields have survived, which may suggest they were made from animal hides instead of bronze or wood like other shields.
And then the Romans were like, we like rectangles.
The Romans were like, we like rectangles more.
Yeah, rectangles are great. Nice. Nice shape. Very angular.
We can make them big.
Yeah, made them big. Humans are rectangle shaped. You get away all the wibbly bits.
All the wibbly bits.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's like giant rectangles. Remember, kids, the technical term for the shape of a football is oblong spheroid.
Oblong spheroid.
That's how they made us learn that in gym class.
Wow, really?
Yeah. It's part of the football game. We had to know what the shape of the football is called. It's an oblong spheroid.
Makes sense, but yeah.
There's a lot of things about gym class that don't make sense. Do some Spartan training, okay? Get ready for a Spartan run? thought about doing some of those at one point, but I don't know what provided thing. All I do is like it.
Battle of Plataea. The Persians' crushing defeat at the Battle of Salamis in 480 BCE greatly discouraged King Xerxes from continuing his invasion. However, one of Xerxes' military commanders, Mardonios, convinced the king that their campaign could continue. Mardonios' hopes were dashed the following year at the Battle of Plataea. The Greeks, who were outnumbered by the Persians, held their own in the open countryside. They fought until they were victorious, killing Mardonius in the process and putting an end to the Second Persian invasion of Greece. Yay!
Persians really saw those little things and I'm like, yep, that one. You like olives? Olives are good. You know, give us some olives.
Yeah.
We've gotten us marble to make us some apadanas.
Xerxes is like, my dad was humiliated by you, I'm gonna kick your butt. And then they didn't. Father of Artaxerxes.
It's a nice song written. Played it in brass ensemble.
Uh-huh.
It'll fix. Let's be real, the Persian leaders you need to know. Cyrus, obviously. Darius. I think that's about all.
Just those two.
That's good. I mean, let's be real.
Cyrus and Xerxes' father.
Let's be real. Like, after Cyrus and Darius, what good Persian rulers were there?
Yeah.
Like, they kept losing control of Egypt. So then you had to fight a war in order to retake Egypt. And then Alexander shows up and that's everything.
Yeah, Alexander basically conquers them.
Alexander's like, I remember Thermopylae. I wasn't there, of course, but...
Oop, sorry.
Hey boys, I got a fire horse and...
Flaming horse coming through. Run!
I can't see 3 foot in front.
Death
Why is
itself
that
has come.
tree growing?
I like the little detail that he actually emits light.
Yeah, just means we can have a stealthy kettle.
Yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, they can probably hear you coming anyway.
Because all you do is clomp, clomp, clomp. Agamemnon's
The so-called treasury of Atreus and Agamemnon's tomb is the largest of 9 Tholos tombs outside the citadel walls of Mycenae. The name Tholos refers to the tomb's round shape. Given their size, it's possible that members of the same family were often buried in the tombs together, along with their riches. The tomb's walls were decorated with bronze sheets attached with nails, and some of the nails are still in place today. Unfortunately, the precautions the people of Mycenae took to seal the tombs, such as walling in the doors and passageways, did little to protect them from ancient and modern treasure hunters, who emptied the tombs of much of their riches. Should have used pyramids.
because that works so much better.
You should have placed them in the Tomb of the Kings and not advertised where they are. In the 2nd century CE, Pausanias wrote that the ruins of Mycenae had hid underground chambers where Atreus, Agamemnon's father, and the other kings of Mycenae stored their treasure. He also reported the existence of several graves, Agamemnon's included. When archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann started excavating at Mycenae in the 1870s, he assumed that the huge buried monuments outside the citadel's walls were the treasuries Pausanias mentioned, dubbing the largest monument the Treasury of Atreus. He also believed he found Agamemnon's tomb in Grave Circle A. Schliemann was later discovered to be incorrect in his assumptions, and for a while after, historians believe the so-called Treasury of Atreus was the real tomb of Agamemnon. Unfortunately, this was also proven false when the monument was dated back to around 1350 to 1250 BCE, years before Agamemnon was suspected to have lived. Wah wah.
Do we even know if Agamemnon was a real guy?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh wait, it's right up here.
he's an important figure in the Trojan War. I know it's the Trojan War this year.
Do we have any oral or written works that involve him?
Yeah, the Iliad. The Iliad and the Odyssey. We got Homer.
Yeah, we have
Trust
Homer.
I don't trust Homer at all.
Especially if his last name's Simpson. Due to the huge stones found in the walls of places like Mycenae and Tiryns, classic Greeks believed their ancestors' citadels were constructed by cyclopses, giant one-eyed builders straight out of mythology. Nowadays, the term Cyclopean masonry is used to describe a variety of walls built with enormous and unworked limestone blocks fitted together without mortar. It was extremely popular in Mycenae. It was employed multiple times in the building and extending of the citadel walls.
See also Britain.
Stonehenge.
No, Stonehenge is not a wall. It's more like a bunch of slabs that are just kind of chilling. Stonehenge is weird, man.
Yeah.
Like, they drag all these stones so far away. Why not build Stonehenge closer to the quarry?
Why indeed?
Like, I get it, don't get me wrong. You got stones, you see a nice place, and you're like, yeah, let's make a cabinet. But, you can make it a little closer, do some terraforming. You're smart enough to move all these stones. You better be smart enough to level out some land, right? A cistern.
Somewhere between 1225 and 1200 BCE, the inhabitants of Mycenae decided to secure a constant supply of fresh water for the citadel in the event of a prolonged siege. They achieved this goal by building a secret passageway to an underground cistern. The water came from a spring on the nearby Mount Prophetess Ilias and traveled to the cistern through underground clay pipes. As time marched on, the installation drained out. However, during the Hellenistic period, another cistern was constructed on the surface to collect rainwater.
Smart guys.
Argolis is complete.
They really just saw this and they're like, yeah, we're gonna get some water down here. We don't got no aqueducts, so we're gonna dig.
Okay, I got Achaia still. There's my last tour. And I just got Cephalonia.
Go back home.
A wheel. To the Temple of Zeus. A statue, though, that's another thing.
Cool statue, man. It's a cool statue.